This is the headquarters of Oakley. You could probably guess, actually, from the view behind me. Now, in there, the legendary eyewear is both designed and manufactured, not to mention a whole load of their other products, like indeed their helmets. And we have been given the rare opportunity of having a look around, and you are coming too. It's located in Southern California, Orange County to be precise, and just a stone's throw from the Pacific Ocean. This aerial view of the facility gives you an idea of the scale of the place. This is where we are currently, and to the left are sales and marketing offices, and to the right, manufacturing. Unlike most factories, this one is designed to impress, and I think it does. With good reason though, because the public are allowed in here as well. There is a shop over there and a customer services point, even a chap to clean your glasses for you. It does sound a little bit quieter than normal, but that's because we asked them to turn the music off so that we could film. Now, in total, this building is 600,000 square feet. Over 1,000 people work here, and most of them in manufacturing, which I've got to say, took me by surprise because, I'll confess, I didn't realise that any Oakleys were still made in California, let alone over 70% of all Oakleys sold. Now, before we get on to that point though, there is a story to tell. We've got a meeting with a man who literally wrote the book on Oakley, who's going to help us talk us through it. Right then, so we're about to go back into the history, the official Oakley tour with Brian Takumi, who's the VP of Product Creative. Before we get stuck in, Brian, what actually is your role then at Oakley now?
So my role now is to actually work with the brand team overseas and taking, when we roadmap product, what is the direction of the products we're going to make, to work with the brand team to make sure we align with how we see the brand coming to life and what it stands for. And so what we'll do is write the stories and narratives behind the emotional reasons why our product exists, besides just the features and benefits of it.
Oakley was started in 1975 by Jim Gennard, and his first product was handlebar grips for motocross bikes. Now, by all accounts, he wanted to create a grip that actually made a difference, and so he designed something quite radical by the standards of the day, and he sourced a specific material that actually becomes grippier in the wet, a material still used on the eyewear today. It wasn't until 1980 that the first eyewear appeared though, and it was the O-frame goggles, followed by ski goggles in 1983. Right, so phase one, I guess, was motocross and BMX grips and goggles. Phase two then, is that when we start getting onto eyewear?
Yep, what we'll walk to next, in this next bay, we'll look at some of the history and origins about how he started eyewear.
Cool, let's do it.
One of the things he asked himself is, why isn't there a piece of eyewear on the market, a sunglass, that has the same coverage as a goggle? And so he said, well, I make goggles, I bet I can go back and make one. So what he did was he went back to his shop, took a goggle lens, cut out a slightly smaller shape than a goggle, took a coat hanger and made some ear stems out of it.
I thought that was kind of a joke, but this is legit, is it?
That's not the original one, but that pretty much recreates what he did back in the day.
Can I put these on as well?
You can try and put them on. I don't know how comfortable they'll be.
Yeah, I think my ears are too big.
But basically from that, the eye shade was born. Wow. And the sports performance optics category was born. Till that day, nothing really existed like that. You basically had a goggle that you could wear on as a piece of sunglasses.
So these are 1984, right?
That is 1984, yeah, 1984.
And that's the sweat pad?
Yep, this is an original eye shade from back in the day. So even for something back then, when you look at that, having the face foam like a goggle, the other thing was having the adjustable ear stems that nothing in eyewear had really ever been done like that. Really, he was trying to make, obviously, like a goggle strap's adjustable. You want to make the ear stems adjustable because obviously people's heads are different sizes. So you can see, even at that stage, how much technology he was trying to put into the eyewear at the time. So what you'll see here, the blades were born. Yeah. Which had that more square shape, not as much of a literal goggle shape. The ear stems.
Yeah.
were interchangeable.
And these are 85?
Those are roughly around 85. And then around 86, you had the razor blades come in, which was one of the things they noticed about this was the size of it was great because of its coverage it came, but for smaller faces and things like that, they needed something a little smaller.
Yeah.
So the razor blade lens was born, which you can see here, which was a little lower profile than the blades. On top of that, this is where really the technology component came in, because one of the things that happened was if you change the height of this lens, what it does is it will actually change the rake of how the lens sits on your face. So one of the things as he was going down the path of making technology, he wanted to make sure that angle stayed the same. So the thing that was born out of it was the trigger ear stems, because now that the height of the lens changed, putting this kink in it actually helped keep the rake of the lens at the same angle as the blade.
I've always wondered why you got that kink in it. I thought it was an aesthetic thing.
Yeah, well, everyone thinks an aesthetic thing, and this is why razor blades have probably become so iconic, is because of that kink. It was actually done for a performance reason.
We could go on through Mumbos, through M-frames, racing jackets. I mean, the list of classics is a long one, but there is a more recent development that Oakley are particularly proud of: their first range of helmets. Now, how is this for a piece of history? Check out those initials there. Greg LeMond's actual jersey. That's amazing, isn't it? They're not lying when they say authorised personnel only. This is the design lab, and not only are we not allowed in there, but also half of Oakley are not allowed in there either. But do not worry, because we've got an appointment with a couple of designers at a fake design lab that we're going to set up. This is Daniel, who is the design lead at Oakley and a part of the team that created the new range of helmets. His job was to sculpt a shape that performed both from an aero perspective as well as looking like something you'd actually want to wear.
The shapes that you would expect to be fast are not that fast. We started with these elongated, speedy looking, teardrop looking shapes. If you look at Ferraris, you expect them to be this really slippery form in the aerodynamic chamber, but it's not. It's actually the Prius that's got the lowest drag coefficient. So that's the thing, I can't put a Prius on your head because although it will be fast, it's not gonna look fast and you're not gonna feel good putting that on your head, right?
Yeah.
So
the trick then is to design something that looks like a Ferrari but functions like a Prius.
Absolutely. Venting and non-vented areas, that balance is probably key to making a fast helmet, because you can make it really fast and close the whole thing up, but if, say you're cycling and you're heating up, then you lose performance and slow down that way. I have a need to build some nice shapes here for ventilation, but second, this is what you see on TV. And if every other helmet looks like a Swiss cheese, you can't really recognize whose is whose. So that was kind of the biggest thing, is okay, how can we create something really identifiable from a brand perspective in the front here? So there's a lot of little things here and there like that took a lot of consideration.
Right, so we're still in our fake design lab, but instead of going with the aesthetics and talking to Daniel about it, we've now got the engineering brains behind it. So Chad, you head up that side of things, effectively taking the sketches and then making them into real things, is that right? So we've talked about making it look cool, we've talked about making it fast, but I guess the primary function that no one really wants to talk about with helmets is the fact that, it's got to be safe, it's got to hopefully one day potentially save your life. When you're starting from scratch, how easy is it to actually come up with something that functions correctly in those situations?
Yeah, it's really hard. So what we essentially do is we just base everything off of an offset, and then we give Daniel just like the plainest looking offset from the we start with a head and we offset it and we say, okay, here's our thickness, go ahead. And they start sketching, and if they violate any of those thicknesses, then we have a conversation.
So you know that the EPS foam has to be a certain thickness in order to function correctly, and then it's a case of removing bits that don't affect the functionality of it.
Yeah, more or less. Here's a really good example. We have these giant vents here. They don't pass. right? We learned that the hard way. So now we're like, now what do we do? So we put this big plastic bar across the front there.
Okay.
That kind of helps pull everything together, and now you have a successful vent essentially.
In here, believe it or not, was Michael Jordan's private basketball court until about 6 years ago. There's also this 450-seater auditorium tucked away, complete with a tyre mark from a Harley Davidson that was doing a burnout, and another one, but this time from a motocross bike that rode in and out during a product launch. Now this rather unassuming door leads us to the Vision Performance Lab. So this is like the R&D centre for Oakley. Hey, Wayne.
Come on in.
Thanks. This is the boss. Right then. Expecting to see some toys in here. Have you got all the kit?
We got plenty of things to show you. So one tool that's been really valuable for the advanced development, flight jacket and field jacket, is this environmental chamber.
Okay.
Right now we have the advancer frame
Yeah.
on a sweaty head.
A sweaty head.
Right, so we developed this guy to pull some hot moisture out onto some skin. We have a cold environment that typically equals steam on the lens, right?
Yeah.
Fogging, right? So we use this to really iterate how far we have to advance the frame in order to have that lens clear. So the advancer frame for us, we found the key was to advance it roughly 5 millimeters. That worked on virtually everybody.
Yeah.
And within roughly 5 seconds of moving, all your fog dissipates. Essentially, we're going to shoot this guy with a 1/4-inch steel ball.
So like
right here.
like a ball bearing.
It's a ball bearing, and there's test requirements for this that say you have to shoot this guy at 150 feet per second, which is around 100 miles an hour. So this laser is right where we're going to hit the lens.
Okay.
So we're going to close this glass here. You
Okay.
want to get up here close to see this. So if we look at the damage to this lens, it typically looks like a scratch.
Yeah.
Right, you can feel a little bit on the front side of the lens there. Feel the back side. You don't really see anything, feel anything there.
That's
So the
nothing.
the lens material is incredibly strong. But what's important is everything's engineered as a unit. So
Okay.
we've been talking about we have to engineer the lens and the frame together to pass optics as well as impact.
Now this, frankly terrifying looking bit of kit is the high mass impact test. So different to the ones we've seen before in that we've got a much bigger weight. This is 500 grams, but it is fortunately traveling slightly slower. We're going to drop it from a height of 127 centimeters onto our poor head form here, but we are at least going to give him a pair of glasses. To start with, the kind of pair that you might find in a gas station. Ouch. So apparently that lens is made from a plastic called CR39 and doesn't look like it's particularly tough. Next up then, pair of Oakleys. Well, there we go. It's a little bit of a difference, isn't it? Now, that isn't obviously going to represent something being flicked up off the road. That's more like if you fall off your bike and headbutt your brake lever or something equally horrific like that. I'm guessing that was an impact test that went wrong, that one. Now this looks like quite a cool bit of kit, Wayne. What exactly are we going to be looking at here?
This is where we test optics. So for this brand, optics are really what we're built on. What we'll see with the laser is we have a laser 35 feet away. On this monitor, you can see a bullseye.
Yeah.
And ultimately what we want is minimal change.
Yeah.
Right? If we have minimal change, then essentially light's passing right through that lens and entering your eye at a proper angle.
Yeah.
Allowing you to see.
Okay.
Right? And so that's an Oakley frame there, minimal change. If I show you, this happens to be a competitor. We won't talk about it, but
Wow.
what matters is that we still have a curved door wrap frame and we see a lot of deviation. On this guy up here, what we need to maintain is lines of definition, right? So the test requirement says you have to meet 20 lines of resolution on all 4 sides. So 2 groups of 3 all the way around, you see the 20 on the right.
Yeah.
If you can hit 20 lines of resolution, you met the highest optical standard in the world. It's an industrial standard for optics. And you can see with this frame, we're nearly double.
Yeah.
40 lines of resolution. So for us in this building, 20 is just a benchmark minimum requirement.
Yeah.
So we achieve for the best optics we can.
And then on to the manufacturing. Unfortunately, despite being shown around, we weren't actually allowed to film, which is a real shame because, well, frankly, it was amazing. Firstly, the raw materials coming in, being melted down, and then with the necessary tints then added for each type of lens. Then also the fact that the molds for the lenses cost up to $500,000 each. And potentially, you'd need up to 5 molds for the most popular ranges of sunglasses. It kind of makes you think how much it costs to actually design and manufacture a new pair of glasses in the first place. I did ask that question, and I was told it was about $1 million. Now, after the mold, the lenses are cut to an accuracy of 0.05 millimeters. This apparently ensures that the lenses are a perfect fit in the frames, because any compression of them to get them to fit would actually distort the lens, however fractionally, but enough to get rejected by Oakley's quality control. After the lens is cut, it gets taken to have its coating applied. Now this is a separate process from the tint. It's a time-consuming one. Different shades of iridium take different amounts of time. Apparently jade iridium takes upwards of 4 hours to complete. Now, before we leave Foothill Ranch, we have one last piece of tech to find out more about. Prism technology, which is where certain tints are added to the lenses that then filter out certain colours and enhance others. It's specific to certain sports, the aim being to improve the vision of the wearer.
So with cycling, if you look at a road surface, it's actually absorbing a lot of the light, so you're void of contrast. And so we want to leverage as our eye sensitivities, bring in more of the good light where our eyes are more sensitive to seeing details, and filter more of the bad light out so that we can get better contrast. So we actually, if you want to get really in depth, we actually take a device called a hyperspectral camera out onto the field, onto different environments, and measure exactly what light is reflecting off of the surfaces. So we can tune the lenses.
So you
for
would
that.
literally go to a piece of pavement or tarmac and then say, right, this is reflecting
exactly
this
these
amount.
wavelengths. It would be a similar graph showing us what wavelengths are reflecting off of that surface. So when we put a prism lens on in front of our eyes, you can tell that it's filtering light very differently from that gray lens. The manufacturing process of a prism lens is the same as our other lenses. The difference, the magic, is in the prism dyes. So we actually mix the dyes in different recipes depending on the lens and the profile that we want to create. And I'll show you kind of what that looks like. So this is an individual dye. Here's another individual dye.
Yeah.
And you can see when we mix the dyes, we start to get somewhat similar to that profile that you saw.
Yeah.
And depending on how much we use of each one, we can make a profile for any of the environments that we have.
Okay, and those dyes then, that actually affects the colour of the lens itself. But what about the coatings then? So the iridium coating that goes on top, does that interact with the prism dyes, or is that completely separate?
The iridium is a coating that goes on the front of the lens, and it's actually reflecting light. So
Yeah.
if you look at the lens, you can see what light is reflecting off of the front.
So that would affect what your eye is detecting.
Right,
effectively.
if you're reflecting light, that means it's not getting through to your eyes. We use the iridium coating in conjunction with the prism recipes so that we can get the exact profile that we want. So we take into account what light is going to be reflected off of the front of the iridium.
And that sounds like quite a complicated process then, given how many different coloured iridium coatings there are, how many prism lens profiles there are, and each one has to be factored in. And do you need to take into consideration the different lenses as well, the lens shapes, or is that like a given?
No, so the lens shapes we can make, for example, this Rode prism lens, it comes in different lens shapes. So we actually develop it to work with different lens shapes. As far as the iridiums, we choose the iridiums based on that lens base and vice versa. So if we want a certain iridium color, like a green iridium, we'd make sure that the base works in conjunction with that color. For Rode, we found that this iridium worked best with that Rode base to bring in the colors that we want.
Well, this brings us to the end of our factory tour from here at Oakley. I'm currently waiting on their very own helipad for my lift home. Waiting, perhaps a bit optimistically, I could be here for some time. But while we wait, do make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. Say thank you very much to Oakley for showing us around. Remember to get involved in the comments, and also stay tuned to GCN as well, because we've got a load more videos coming up from right here at Foothill Ranch. Well, here we go. Gotta say, I wasn't actually expecting that, but that's very nice of them.